Peter McGuire, welcome back. Let's talk what now, what next.
Good morning. Friday we saw a big sell-off as far as US equities. It led into the weekend and a lot of, I think, trepidation from market participants. We've had a number of weeks as far as down weeks, and the market certainly was take a deep breath. And where were we Monday? And Monday we had a very strong move as far as US equities. Pretty mixed as far as Asian. We had some of those markets well down and some were flat, but the US equities really roared into place as far as Monday and how we face Tuesday in Asia trade.
Headlines this morning suggest that the equities are storming back on fiscal hopes.
Yeah, when you're thinking about stimulus, and I read somewhere where Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, has said, we've thrown everything at this. We've pulled out every trick in the book. It's now to the ouch factor. Do we get that strong recovery? It's a big week for news, and I think this week it's one of the biggest I've seen all year, and that's a big statement.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. A couple of key points here. We've got risk appetite improving on the hopes that the US fiscal deal isn't entirely dead. We've got the dollar climbing despite rebound in stock markets. Europeans are a little worried. Too early to say in terms of the turbulence that's sort of been basically permeating around all markets. But there seems to be some optimism out there. The longer term may well be a little brighter than we think. And then finally, of course, tomorrow, 11 a.m, we've got the Trump-Biden debate.
Yeah, 11 a.m. Sydney time, Wednesday, 30th of September. What a 90 minutes that'll be. So I think the market is really hanging on and holding on to what can happen. Where does Biden play? And it's the time for Biden to march that much further ahead as far as his competitive advantage versus Trump. He's 7 points up at the moment. Does that move to 10? Does that move to 15? Or does Trump claw back? And there can only be that 90 minutes is going to tell the story. It's what the election or the electorate really, I suppose, digests from those words of Trump's.
And here in Australia, we'll see what happens as it unfolds. 11 a.m. tomorrow. That's Wednesday in Australia, or 7 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, exactly right.
Mate, talk to me about risk appetite and how that's improving.
Well, when you're thinking about that US dollar, we saw a big strengthen over the last couple of weeks. We saw the risk off as far as US equities and global equities. It seemed to have a bit of probably a little bit exhausted to the upside in September. We're now at the end of September, and I think that probably a deep breath, and where do we run into October? We're 1 month from the election, or really 5 weeks from today, so it's not too far away. And do we see momentum build into October? It does also depend as far as Trump and Biden, those three debates. We're going to see them all in October. So it's, fascinating times ahead, but volatility I think will remain.
Let's take a quick look at this chart. The dollar looks like here still a mirror reflection of the stock market.
Absolutely.
Is that normal?
Yes and no, Will. I mean, these are unnormal times. We saw that huge sell-off just for the viewer standpoint. Everything crashed. Dollar went massively up to 103. That's the US dollar index, and equities crashed in March. Then we saw the US equities just go off the Richter scale. They were just parabolic as far as growth. And you saw that September flat line and then, a little bit of a correction. US dollar went down to 91.5 and then it bounced from there back up to where it is today, just over 94. So it's very, very choppy. And what happens as far as the Eurozone, where do all these big trading partners play? It's going to be a fascinating run up to the last quarter.
We touched on the idea that the US seemed to have peaked, but there's a bit of optimism coming back into the market.
Sure.
If we take a look at this chart, we've got the US. The chart tells the story, right? This is really about daily infection rates.
Yes.
It's about moving.
Well, yeah, exactly right, Will. I mean, when you're thinking about, you see Spain there, you see they're bigger numbers now than what they experienced going back into March and April, which is just catastrophic. The US. They've come off their peaks, what we saw, going back into that June, July period when it really built. And now you've got the likes of France just really climbing, UK as well. So that we now head into a true winter. And where are we by Christmas? Do we need more stimulus? And what do those numbers look like? Are they going to be significantly far greater running into January, February?
Payrolls. Always an interesting time when we're looking at payrolls, and this will be the last payroll perhaps until after the election. Is that right?
Well, after the debates, and certainly the election will be the 3rd, so it'll be the first Friday of November, so it'll be probably the 6th, if I can do my mathematics quickly, 6th of November. So that particular count there, we've got the ADP numbers coming out Wednesday. We're thinking that unemployment's going to be around about that 850 mark, 850,000 new jobs created, and we had 1.45 million in August. So they won't be as hot as that, but that's still a pretty good number. We've got unemployment falling from 8.4 to 8.3%, and under the Trump presidency, like him or not, he's certainly created jobs over the last 4 years. There's no debate on that.
Looking here at EU and US inflation, the differences matters for the EU or the Europe versus the
exactly
USD.
Right. You know, the other side of it, Will, in August we saw that Eurozone first time hit deflationary over this, over the last couple of years, hit a deflationary spiral. And we're just seeing if September, we'll see those numbers in the next day or so, whether September's going to follow track. When you've got record low interest rates and negative interest rates, it's not unusual to see deflationary times. And how do they trade their way out, and what the storyline looks like come October and November. So yeah, it's a bit of an issue. Low interest rates, possibilities of deflation.
Let's talk gold, because it's a safe haven, and we've talked about it a lot on this program over the last months. But gold looks like a go-to, and it looks like a consistent go-to, and it looks like it'll stay there.
Well, yeah, we had a bit of a pullback, as we saw in that chart. Really tells the story from those lows that you saw in March. It capitulated back to about that 1450 to 1500 range. We've had nearly 2100 odd. Then it collapsed down to 1850. It's back at around about that 1885 number right this second. US dollars come off a little bit. Gold's heading higher. Deflationary times all feed into that gold appetite. So I think it's onward and upward. That this coming decade is going to be a nice place for gold to be. Jerome Powell, and do they need to fire far greater stimulus to the global economy? I think the only time will tell. We've got to look where this is in March or April with this, the European winter and Northern Hemisphere winter, and how great an impact COVID creates economically and, of course, from a medical side.
Look around most boardrooms, most coffee shops, if you can get out, that is, and amongst any of the business commentators, the politics, the business, the technology, the economy, all consistent conversations that are occurring. Recovery seems to be the biggest opportunity that everybody can shape their mind to. Optimism, we need a little bit of that. We need to sprinkle. We need a little resilience. We need to sprinkle a little optimism on this, and we have to really think about who are our leaders. Are they leading us, and are we backing the leader to actually allow the leader to lead?
Well, that's true, and that comes down not only in your local community but certainly nationwide. How it runs, Australia seems to be very. We're very fortunate, I think, when you think we're a continent. So we haven't got those large numbers that we're seeing in Eurozone, and we've got to be conscious, are we going to open the floodgates and have international tourists come here, and do we see that build again? So it's a very, very difficult situation to think through. Glad I'm not in the role. I don't know whether you could ever make the right decisions, but the storyline is, whilst the UK and the Eurozone build, you certainly don't want people coming from those shores to Australia or probably New Zealand.
Pete McGuire, good to speak to you, and let's check back next week after the debate.
Look forward to it, Will. Thank you.